Okay, so for any of the OGs that have watched the channel for a long time, we've moved offices again and we're back in the similar location as we were last time. Let me just show you guys the view. Check this out. This is one of our silos. We've got a barn that's built next door here, which I'll have to show you at some point. But yeah, that view certainly helps when you're trying to build and scale a business. I do find that environment is absolutely key. Anyway, the purpose of the video today, I've not uploaded in a while. I've been enjoying my life. I'm a dad now, I've been trying to take my health a lot more seriously. I've just been maximizing all buckets, and YouTube hasn't been one of those buckets, but for now it is. Not in a sense of doing this to have a business per se, but just to sort of share my lessons, share my journey. Nothing to sell you, nothing to push you into. But I just want to sort of share my lessons and document, and hopefully some people get some value out of it. And maybe my daughter will watch this one day if she runs her own business. Who knows? Anyway, I'm going to speak about 7 micro rituals that make me 700k a month. These are small rituals that, quite frankly, have absolutely changed the way I operate, changed the way I run my business, maximize, in terms of vibe max in my life, in terms of maximizing my life for pleasure and freedom and enjoyment, as well as obviously revenue and profit. So I want to break them all down for you. The first one that I want to speak about, one of the most powerful, okay? It's course correcting the troops daily. Now we're in a position, we've got over 50 people in the team right now between in-house and remote. And I've got a COO, I also have a head of sales, head of delivery, head of talent. So I've got a few leaders in the business, and one of the most powerful things that we have as a sort of company structure is every single day, one of my top priorities and top tasks is to course correct my troops, so course correcting my leaders, and then my leaders make sure they course correct everybody in their team. And what I mean by this is basically I make sure that my COO and my head of sales and my head of delivery, my head of talent are all working on the number one most important thing that they can work on. In turn, every day they double check everybody in their departments, all of their direct reports are working on the number one most important thing that they can do right now. I think as you scale any business and as you scale any team, ultimately what you can end up doing, and we had this for a while, it's just you end up with a lot of bloat, right? Like you end up with a lot of moving parts, but that doesn't necessarily equate to achieving more. What we found is actually achieving less, like our profits thinned, our revenues actually stunted as we added more people to the business. And it's because we added this layer of complexity and there was a lot more management systems, more people to manage. And all that ended up happening is we had more people in the business that were all working on the wrong things, which were actually sending us down the wrong route and the wrong direction, okay? So the most powerful thing you can do, it doesn't take very long at all. We use Asana as our project management tool. Every single one of my leaders has a board set up. Every single person in my company has a board set up. We have a section at the top of the board, which we just call North Star Task. And every day we just I make sure my leaders are working on the top priority thing they can to move the business forward. And my leaders make sure their direct reports do. And because of this, we basically rode 50 people in the same direction. So then having more resources and having more people and having more troops allows you to achieve more in the business, rather than what we did for a while. And I know a lot of people have is like you add more people, which adds more complexity and adds more bloat. So if you can just make sure that everybody's doing that, you're going to move quicker than your competition. You're going to actually, the whole reason of having talent is resource allocation. It's allocating your funds, your resources to something. That choice in this instance is a person, is talent. So you want to maximize that allocated resource. Every dollar you spend on a person is a dollar that needs to work as optimal as possible, for you to get an ROI on that dollar, but also for you to build the business that you want to build. So again, this takes 5 minutes a day for me. My job as the leader of this business is to create clarity for my leadership team, and my leadership team's job is to create clarity for their team. And the more clarity we have across the business in terms of where we're going and what tasks need to be done in order to get where we want to go, then the better. So yeah, number one micro ritual every day takes 5 minutes. I check my leadership team's North Star section on their Asana board. I make sure that it's the most important thing that they can be working on. If it's not, I adjust it. If they are working on something right now, I ask for updates. I try to condense the time down. If they think it's going to take a week, I ask, how can it take 2 days? What can we reprioritize to make sure that's your key focus? We condense the time down. We get everybody plowing towards their North Star number one task in the business. Okay, so number one, micro ritual takes 5 minutes a day, course correcting the troops. Number two, also an absolute game changer. I'm probably going to make just a 5-10 minute video of this topic alone, and I'll actually show you in Asana, because this is something I developed myself, and this is just something like I've never learned this from anybody, right? You see so much stuff on YouTube. You've got to be kind of careful. It almost becomes a bit of an echo chamber, right? Because everybody's telling you the same things, and then you're sort of telling your strategy of your business becomes what other people have told you to do, and then you're telling other people to do that because that's what you've learned. You just have to sort of be careful with that sometimes, because some of the best systems I've built, I've actually just built off my own wants and needs, and this is one of those systems. So I call it my in progress and delegated list. So obviously, when you first start any company, marketing agency, whether that's an info business, whatever, in the beginning, hard work, grind is the most important thing. Like, you just need to be a powerhouse, quite frankly, right? You just need to get in and get stuff done. That changes quite a lot as you scale. It becomes more about leverage. It becomes more about decision making. It becomes more about strategy. And quite honestly, it becomes more about protecting your clarity and your mental energy so you can make the best possible decisions. And delegation is one of the key parts of that. So in order to really scale any business, you need to become a master at delegation, and you need to be completely okay with giving up control. And what you find happens is, as you get more and more, at least this is, I can speak from my own experience, maybe you can relate, but the more and more that I scaled my business up, the more that I delegated, those things still weighed on me. So I would say to my team, like a team member, hey, I want you to go and work on XYZ thing. And then until that thing was done, it would just weigh heavy on my shoulders. So like, I'm delegating it, but then I'm not getting any mental clarity or freedom from it. I feel like I need to step in every 2 seconds and ask for updates or micromanage. One of the best things that I've found is to solve that is my in progress and delegated list. So again, on that same Asana board that we use, everyone in the company has an Asana board. Specifically on my Asana board, I have a section called in progress and delegated. So what I do is every time I delegate a task, so I'll delegate a task and I will put that on that person's Asana board. So let's say I want you to go and do XYZ thing. I'll film a Loom video. I'll just, if it's simple, I'll add it to their Asana board and I'll say, this is due on this date. So I'll say, this is due Friday. Okay. What I will then do is I will go in Asana. You can add it to multiple projects. I will add that task that I've delegated to my project, and I will add it to a section I've created called in progress and delegated. And then what I will do, what will happen is I've got a filter set up on my personal board to only show me tasks that are due today or overdue. So what that means is every morning when I go in, any tasks that were due today in that in progress and delegated section, which I've delegated out, if they've not been ticked off, I will see them there, and then I can go to my team and ask for updates. But the reason this works really well is I'm able to sort of mass delegate everything on my list to my team, and I'm able to then know and like rest easy at night and get the mental clarity, because I know when the time's right, like when that task is due to be complete, I'm going to be notified in Asana whether it's been ticked off and complete. I'll see that it's been completed. Or if it hasn't, I know that it's going to pop back up when the due date is. And rather than me being this micromanager, I'm able to just see that, right, we agreed this date of Friday. If you need anything from me in the meantime, you reach out to me. Until then, you go and crack on. It frees my mental load, and I'm able to then go and focus on the next big move, the next big decision, and then delegating effectively. And quite frankly, with 50 people in my team and a really solid leadership team, I can go to my team now and delegate multiple tasks every single day and just know that when the time's right, I'll just ask for an update. 9 times out of 10, I've got a fantastic team. They'll just complete it. And if they need something from me, they'll come and ask it. Okay. The art of delegation 101 though is make sure that you give everybody, whoever you're delegating the task to, make sure they know why it's being done, make sure they have the resources you need. So if you delegate effectively, most of the time I don't get any questions from my team on that, but yet I also don't have that constant need of like micromanaging or asking for updates or seeing where we're at, because I know when the time's right, it will be on my Asana because of that filter that I set up. So that's my in progress and delegated list, and I review that again every single day. And if it's completed, great, fine. If I need to ask for updates, I'll do that. So yeah, just another really, really powerful one. The third micro ritual, this is super simple. I'm not going to spend loads of time on this, but it really makes a big difference. Preparation the night before. So I have a 60-minute preparation block. Now this preparation block is something that I do at home, and what I'll tend to do is I've got my treadmill desk set up at home, and it takes about 60 minutes. And usually in 60 minutes on a treadmill desk as well, I can do about 4,000 or 5,000 steps. So I like to integrate this for my health. So it allows me to get some extra steps in. And also I do it at a point of the day where like I basically like mentally burnt out from like properly doing any tasks, any proper tasks or meetings. I do it towards the end of my day. And essentially I just prep my tomorrow. So I just make sure I know, for me, the core tasks that I need to be doing, the tasks I need to be delegating, the things that I need to do. I just make a list depending on how big the task is, anywhere from 1 to 3 sort of high leverage tasks. I make sure that that's done. What I also do is I'll also review any metrics, things like that I need to, just to sort of help me inform that decision of what needs to be a priority. Because ultimately, you know, we're a data-driven business. If we see metrics are off track, then that might dictate what tomorrow's priority becomes for me. So I try in a 60-minute work block to just heavily prioritize my tomorrow. I plan my workouts, whatever it is. It doesn't always take an hour, but you know, if it doesn't take an hour, then I'll try and stay on the treadmill for an hour to get those 4,000 or 5,000 extra steps in. But it's an obvious one, but I suppose my unique nature to this for you is I make it enjoyable. I might, I'll put my hue lights on, I'll put a bit of jazz on, I might have a tea or a decaf coffee, I'll get on my treadmill desk, I get the steps in. So it becomes a nice little way to sort of vibe max, to settle down for the day, and then by the time tomorrow hits, I'm ready to attack my top priority tasks. The third? The fourth micro ritual I've got for you here is another simple one. Okay, I love Asana, as you'll hear continually as I post more. I literally have a checklist on Asana. Let me just pull it up so I can tell you what's in it. But I literally have a checklist on Asana to let me get into flow state. So I call it my flow state checklist, and it recurs every single day. And every single morning when I sit down, when I get into the office and I sit down to start my work, I have a few action items that just help me get into flow state. And it's so funny because I feel like people just assume that flow state is just something that happens, but what I've found is if you prime yourself in the right way, you basically just maximize your ability of getting into it. And I've almost like trained my brain to like force myself into flow state every day. And by doing that, I get so much more done. I don't need to obviously go into the benefits of flow state. Everybody knows like the time disappears, you get your shit done. So really simple. I have a little checklist here and I tick it off every morning. Okay, it takes me 3 minutes. Again, micro ritual. So before I decide to get into my work block and I get into flow, I go to the toilet. It sounds basic, but how many times have you sat down deep in a work block, an hour in, you're firing on all cylinders, and then you need a wee? Do you know what I mean? You have to get up, you go to the toilet, breaks flow. Sounds basic, but if I go for a wee beforehand, empty my bladder, I'm more likely to stay in that flow state, okay? Number 2, my noise cancelling AirPod Pro Maxes, whatever you want in terms of noise cancelling is key. But yeah, you want your noise cancelling headphones on. I like to listen to jazz. Brain FM works as well. I switch between the two. Brain FM, jazz, noise cancelling headphones, number 1. Close all tabs. I have Alfred on my computer. It's basically a way to maximize what you can get from your keyboard, essentially. Super cool tool. I'm going to do a separate video on that. I use it for so much that saves me so much time. But one of the big things is Command Q for me just closes all tabs. So simple Command Q, close all tabs, just to make sure I'm not flicking between stuff. I'm not, in the middle of something and I have to scroll, move across to try and find the tab I need to be. Closing all tabs. Next up, a nice full pint of water, just to make sure that I can drink whilst I'm on the go. I don't need to get up and tell myself I need a water just to sort of procrastinate and go and get a water an hour into my flow state. I've got it there. If it's my morning flow block as well, I'll make sure I get my coffee. This is a bit of a unique one for me. In our business here, in our bar next door, we've got meeting pods. So they're like noise cancelling pods, and they're like literally the smallest little pods. Like I can sit in it and I just fit in it as me, and I stare at like a grey wall. I just lock myself in one of those. The team know them for the most part, just unless it's really urgent, just like don't bother me as well. But for you, maybe that's locking yourself in your office, whatever, shutting the door, locking the door. And then obviously finally, I mean, this isn't something I necessarily need to do because I live on it anyway, but make sure your laptop, phone, all on do not disturb so you're not getting notifications pinging through. But again, that literally takes me like 3-4 minutes, okay? And then once I've done that, I'm like, boom, primed, go into flow state. I've got my tasks from the night before, we'll crack on. So yeah, really, really, really powerful little micro ritual. Just have an Asana checklist that I can just repeat day in, day out. I open it up, I know what I'm doing in there anyway now, but it just reminds me, this is what I need to do. Primes, boom, straight into flow state. The next micro ritual is my 4-hour deep work block. This is my non-negotiable and nothing gets in the way of this. So again, this isn't anything groundbreaking, but my flow state gets me into my deep work block, my ritual. And again, this is whatever I've prepped the day before gets done in this work block. But what I want to say here is, this is what's absolutely key about this for me, is I move my day around this. So I just want to be crystal clear. It's like, yes, I have a 4-hour work block pretty much every day. Some days it's a little bit shorter depending on what I've got to do. But between a 2 and 4 hour deep work block every day. And it's a non-negotiable, and my day moves around it. And that's what I want you to take away from here as my ritual for this, is my day moves around that work block. So for example, if I know that later in the day that I've got plans, I've got things to do, or I've got meetings to have, that section stays there, okay? I wake up in the morning, I come into the office, I do my pre-flow ritual, and then I get into my work block. Everything else moves around that, okay? So if I have meetings that need to happen, they happen afterwards. If I'm going to the gym, they happen afterwards. That front loads my day, and then everything else gets backlogged. And I'm not super strict then on what happens. I've got my own routine and ritual for what I have for my workouts, things like that later in the day, my family time as well, my learning time. However, I'm more flexible around how that pans out depending on the plans I have in my day. Like, for example, tomorrow my daughter's got at her nursery, we've got like a nursery check-in, right? So that kind of messes up my afternoon. So I'll move my afternoon around, but I won't change where my flow work block is. And I try to make that 4 hours every single day. But some days, with where I'm at in my business right now, with it being about decisions and leverage, that 4-hour deep work block might become 2 hours, and then I might go on a nice long walk to make decisions and strategize, for example. But the point is however long is kind of irrelevant. The actual process of the block being there and my day moving around it is the key thing for you to take away. Okay, number 6 now I think we're on. Meal prep company, food meal prep. Now, there's 2 parts of this, okay? Number 1 being, obviously, you save time. Like, obviously, right? Like, use a meal prep company, you save time. The second part of it is, so much as you scale a business, it's so funny. It's like, as you scale a business, like the more basic, obvious stuff becomes more important. It's like when you first start out, it's like you need to do everything, it's the basics. Then it becomes like 1% optimizations. Then it comes back to like basics again, right? It's like so funny, but energy management is so damn important right now. When you're a leader in a business where it's more about decisions and strategy and stepping back and thinking about, making the right decision is more important about taking the action, and you've got troops and team members to help you execute on that vision and execute on your decisions. Energy becomes even more important. I'm not going to go into it now, obviously, but like sleep's obviously super important. Hydration, and obviously your diet becomes super important. And what I found for a while is, because I maximize freedom and convenience and I maximize time, it's just so easy to jump on Uber Eats and Just Eat and just order a ton of crap food. And by the way, I still do that like way more frequent than I need to. However, what I found is, by having a meal prep company, it both allows you to maximize energy in terms of putting good things into my body, but it also saves me all the time. I rock up, I've got a nice little integrated system where I have a house manager. So what happens is, like, my meal prep company delivers my meals, my house manager puts them in the fridge, and then basically I go in and just eat eat my meals. So if you're not doing this already, it can be done relatively cheap. I don't know exactly what I spend. I think I spend about $1,000 a month on my meal prep company, which isn't like super cheap, but obviously I feel like if you're 6-7 figure business right now, the hours and time it takes, the mental energy and clarity you get, at least if you're like me, where it's like you value the convenience of your order and takeaways, like then obviously meal prep company definitely makes a big difference. And improves your workouts, improves your health. And for me as well, like, business growth is important, but it's more important for me to maximize all areas of my life. My health is a priority. My lifespan and health span is a priority. So it's important that we do that. So yeah, another one. Final one for this video, and I've got tons more. So let me know if you enjoyed this. I can make way more like raw content like this, just listing off what I do. But the 7th one is to do with QC, quality control. Now, if you have a business, as you know, standards are important. At the end of the day, as the owner of the business, the CEO, my standard is what matters. If I've got a low standard, my team are going to have low standard. Okay, that's not really something you can delegate out. Like, you set the standard, and standards being set is one thing, but you need to make sure that those standards are being upkept, and that's done with quality control. And I want to talk about how we manage quality control in our business, because I think people maybe I'm just talking from experience and projecting onto you guys the way I learned, but I get the impression that a lot of people think that quality control is micromanagement. Like, if you delegate something, you don't need any oversight. And I made that mistake. It's like, I don't want to be a micromanager, so therefore I delegate and just leave people to it. Not the way it works. The perfect balance is what you call quality control, which is where you're not getting involved in nitpicking every little thing, but you have systems in place to actually oversee and double check that the standards are being met, the SOPs are being followed, what you're telling your team they need to be doing, they're actually doing. It's not about nitpicking every small thing. It's just about making sure that the quality that's being promised to customers is being upheld. And that doesn't just come for service delivery, it comes for sales teams, it comes for how the pitch being followed. QC goes all throughout the whole business. So here's how we have it. Every single leader in my business quality controls their department. So this is the current cadence. So different tasks have different cadences for when they're QC'd. For example, client communication, Slack and things like that, my head of service delivery QCs that every day, because we'll see if problems arise, client unhappiness starts to spike up. We will see that. So client communication in Slack is QC'd every day by the head of that department. Okay. Now, something like sales calls, not every sales call is reviewed every day for every rep. However, at least every week, my manager will quality control a handful of calls for every single rep. A, to provide training, yes, but B, to also make sure the script's being followed. And then depending on what pops up, there may be additional QC to be done. Okay, so every task in the business that's being executed has some form of cadence for my manager to review it from a sense of QC. So they will quality control that either once a week, some stuff's once a day, some things are 3 times a week, some things are once a month, okay? And then what happens is they have their spot checks, and then for me as the CEO of the business, as the owner of the business, I also, for most things, have a cadence to just QC the QC, right? Like, I will quality control the quality control that's being happened, but I'll just do it on a lower cadence. So, I might dive in and review client communication once a month. I might dive into the Slack channels once a month, because I know my head of service is checking it daily, my COO is checking it weekly, and then I'm going to oversee that again monthly. So I'm QC in the QC of the QC, if that makes sense. The way you got to think about it sometimes is you almost need to be in, and this isn't being, it's only a micromanager if you're getting involved into every last thing. It's still about having that discipline to stay stepped out. Again, this is quality control, not micromanagement. Your job is to see, to identify, to check, okay? You almost want to be, to a degree, you don't want to miss anything, okay? You want to be a secret spy to your own business in a sense. You need to know everything that's going on, okay? But that doesn't mean you need to micromanage, and I think that's the key thing. So in terms of a takeaway lesson for you is, whether it's you right now, whether you've got leadership structures, whether you are the one in delivery, in which case it's a bit different. But if you've got leaders, or you've got multiple layers of leaders like I do now, you want systems and cadences for quality control. All areas of the business need some cadence of quality control. And just as the leadership team, as you add layers to the leadership team, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have oversight. It just means the cadence of which they oversee. And if you do that, that's how you can build a business that has really high standards where SOPs are followed at scale, even though there's quite a few moving parts. And again, that's been one of the main reasons that we've been able to scale and not just completely fall apart, because we have that level of QC in the business still, and everybody knows the standards that are expected of them. And if something gets missed, it's going to get picked up on. Anyway, hope you found tons of value in this. If you want more like this, drop a comment down below, and hopefully you enjoyed the raw style video. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.